Danielson. I'm head of the immigration department here at Frederickson and Byron, and I'm just delighted that you guys all came out on this dreary day to join us to talk about immigration. Our team here really looks forward to having many of you come out whom we know and work with over the course of the year, but often don't really have face-to-face meetings with. So I hope that you do get a chance to stick around after we're done with our presentations and enjoy a drink and some appetizers and schmooze a little bit with our team so that we can get to know you a little bit more on a face-to-face level in this day and age of total computer communication. I'm going to call on our team members real quickly to just raise hands to let you know, see maybe a face being put with a name here. So I actually put everybody, we have so many people now that I put everybody in alphabetical order so that I don't forget in one of my senior moments who all we have on the team or even what their last name is or anything like that, which is terrible. I shouldn't even admit that. But okay, so Lauren Anderson, Bob Aronson, Paula Blinker is a paralegal who works remotely, so I don't think she came in today. June Chung, there you are. Sandra Chu. I don't think Carolyn came in today either, right? She's another legal assistant who works remotely. Darlene Damer. Shane Dill. Jody Gustafson. Lon Wynn. Faith Locken. Paula Olson, Ashley Roth, Deborah Schneider, Eugene Schenk. Is Lori here, or is she manning the fort? We had to have somebody answer the phones in our group. That would be Lori Summer, Julie Tedham, and finally Maya Vang. So thank you. That seems like it's pretty much everybody in the room, but it's not. There's a lot more people here than just that. So while you eat your lunches, we've invited a wonderful guest speaker today to come and address some of the issues many of you are facing in your companies. Managing change while your employment environment is increasingly becoming more diverse, including with immigrant employees. So, Struan, I don't know how we did today on managing change when the lunches were late. Hopefully we did okay. Struan Robertson is the Vice President of Human Resources at Bio-Techne, and he has more than 20 years of experience dealing with organizational change and has worked for some of the world's major companies. His bio is in your materials, so I'm not going to repeat it here. Except to say that he has this wonderful little book, I wish I had it in my hand, but this wonderful little book on change as part of his innovative Be a 10 program, which he may tell you about. So without further delay, I want to invite Struan up here to talk to you about a subject that he's gifted to address. So thanks, everyone, for coming out, and
thank you.
Take it away, Struan.
Thank you. I thought this room, can you hear me okay? I thought this room looked like it was a bit empty. For some reason, the window seat seems to be a bit full on the other side. And yes, when you were reading out the Frederickson names, I thought I was the only person who doesn't work for Frederickson here. Can I see a show of hands for anyone who's in human resources? Okay, so I just need to clarify something, that I am the least qualified human resources person in the room. And the reason why I'm the least qualified human resources person in the room is because I've only been in human resources for 1 year. I'll explain kind of how that happened. I brought some slides, not that I need them. Do I just bang these on somehow?
Here you go.
There you go. Fantastic. That was the title that was given me to talk today. It's probably not a title. I probably wouldn't have used that many words. But I think Frederickson wrote that title.
Lawyers. We get paid by the
by the word, I get that. If you were going to make that title different, if you were going to change the title, what would you change it to? What do you think it's trying to say? Managing change? Although my philosophy is we have change managers in organizations, we should fire them all because we don't need them. Because if you're not managing change, then what are you managing, honestly? And I think the way the world's going is management is playing less of a role. I think maybe leadership is playing more of a role. But we're managing change, that's all we're managing. So without that, I don't know what we're managing. And the world is definitely diversifying, there's no question. I didn't know diversifying was a word, actually. I'm still questioning that. But the employment environment, this is my first real job. So this is a little bit about me. That's my family. So I was born in New Zealand, and I left to study in Australia. And then I lived in Australia for 20 years-ish. I left New Zealand when I was about 18. I then went, after a divorce, to live in the UK. I don't know why I added that bit, but that's what I did. I then went to live in the UK and got married again to this lovely lady and had a family in the UK. I was there for about 15 years, and I've been in the US now for a year. And that should add up to 53, or something like that. Or coming on 54, maybe. And in one sense, when I look at my own life, because I've gone from New Zealand and went to live in Australia, and then went to live in the UK, and then came to live in the US, I am very, very used to the fact that I need to throw out everything in my life which is irrelevant. You know how you just collect stuff? I've thrown it all out so many times, truncated my past, put everything in a small box and moved to another country, and had to, if you like, reinvent myself in order to assimilate into a new culture. And I could say that that's been quite difficult, and there has been elements of that which is difficult, but actually, in one sense, I'm probably the easiest person on the planet for that to happen to. And the reason why is because I've gone from Western society to Western society, so I already look like I belong. I can speak the language. By nature and the way that I work, I'm a collaborative kind of person. I engage with other people. I'm easy to talk to. I have, I think, a high sense of sensory acuity. You know, I kind of know if I come to your house when it's time to leave. You know, some people don't know. And you've had dinner and my wife might have gone to bed and I'm naked brushing my teeth and they're leaning with a glass of wine saying, you know, my father used to say to me, you just want to say, go. I think I have that ability. And I'm not saying this because I'm the only one with the ability. I'm just saying lots of us have that ability. But in terms of dealing with change and assimilating into a new culture, I'm pretty good at it. And I've spent my life talking to other people about doing that. And yet, for me, it was still hard. Can you imagine if I looked Somalian, or if I'd gone to Belgrade and tried to speak a completely different language and understand a different culture? It would just be exponentially harder for me to do that. And so I guess for me, the context of me talking today is that I know some stuff about this topic. I've talked to a lot of people about this topic. And for me, it was still difficult, even though if I had a specialist subject, this would be it. And yet, I'm the easiest person on the planet it can happen to. And we need to find a way to make it easy for other people. And I'm glad that you mentioned, Laura, in your introduction, it's about immigration, but it's actually much wider than immigration, because I guess I wanted to address it as a much wider thing than just immigrating. So I worked with the chief exec of my current business for about 15 years. He employed me as a consultant in various businesses in the UK and Europe and in the US. And he's always been saying to me, you really should come and work with us full time. And I've been just saying, no, I'm really happy on my own. And I have been really happy on my own. But then I came over doing some work here a year or so ago, and he asked me again, and it was just at the right time. You know how there's just a time? And I spoke to my wife, what do you think? And she said, maybe it's a good time for an adventure. You know, our kids were 8 and 10, and so we decided to bite the bullet. And the job he offered me was to be the head of human resources. I can't tell you what I said when he offered me the job, but what I did say was, Chuck, I know... What I meant to say was, I don't know much about human resources, right? And then he said, I can't believe you used the F-bomb in an HR interview. And I said, I didn't know it was an HR interview, Chuck. And then I said, anyway, what are you going to change about me? He said, nothing. I said, you're going to change something. He said, no, nothing. Just come and do what you do. He said, oh, change your vocabulary. Do that. That's probably a better thing to do. So I've done my best to change my vocabulary, but I really haven't changed anything about who I am. I knew nothing about 401k. I didn't know anything about HR. And it says in my bio, which Lone wrote some very lovely words, thank you for that. It says that I believe that strategy, that culture is much more powerful than strategy. I forget the words you used, but someone once said, famous said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Do you know who said that? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I thought it was Colin Powell, but it was someone really well known who said that. Anyway, I totally agree with it. If you're in the army and you've got a strategy to take a hill, and the culture is they don't want to take the hill, they're not going to take the hill. If the culture is they don't want to take the hill and the strategy is to take it, they're not going to take the hill. Culture will beat it every single time. And so I've always been about culture. I mean, strategy is important, but I've always been about culture and how do you move people to achieve, to achieve an objective. Now, when I came to the US, I found some things really difficult, and this is me. But then I came with some other people, right? I came with those. Now, I want to talk about two bits. I want to talk about the work bit, and I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I want to talk about the life bit, because what Biotechne didn't do when I came was work out the life bit. They worked with me and how to get me here. And I came on an O1 visa. Do you know what that is? It means that I have extraordinary ability, I think. Is that right? That's nothing impressive. It just means I don't fit into a box, and all the H1Bs were gone. Or there was some reason why. I wouldn't. Anyway, Frederickson did a 580-page resume for me, where I basically had to go to everyone on the planet I knew to write me really strong letters. And anyway, I got in. But what it means was I got here, but my family couldn't do anything when they got here, right? You don't get my family couldn't get a social security number. So what landed here was I arrived, and I was immediately immersed in this organization. I was flat out. I had a team to get to know. I had an entire career to try and understand. I had a whole lot of issues in the organization which I knew nothing about. And all I came with was a dose of logic, actually. I mean, it's a science company. I didn't even know anything about science. The strapline for my previous business was the science of mindset and the spirit of rock and roll. So all I had was this kind of rock and roll approach saying, look, if we're logical, we treat people well, we will get through this. But I knew nothing about the hardcore stuff of HR. And a year on, I've got some people from my team here. Do I know any more a year on? No, that's the answer. I know nothing. I know nothing more a year on from that. But just to give you an insight whether you can understand this, if you got a coffee and they said, do you want, like, what are you going to put in it? What have you got? I've got half and half. Do you know what that means? Half and half. You know what half and half is? No? You know what 2% is? Right, well, if you're going to get a coffee in this country, you can get half and half. I didn't know half of what and half of what. I have no idea. 2% of what? And this is only milk, right? So one tiny thing, I've got no idea what you're talking about. I just went outside and saw the sandwiches. The lunch came. Have you ever noticed how much meat Americans put on a sandwich? It's like this. In the rest of the world, they put a couple of slices on. There's everywhere I look, there is a difference. And yet I'm one of those people who can assimilate, and I look like I belong in what might be a white Western society, that would be easy for me. I got a social number. My wife couldn't get a social. Even when people say, what's your social? I had no idea what they were talking about. Or give me the last 4 of your social. I had no idea what that means. Do you know what an escrow is? You would think that I know what an escrow is, but I've never grown up with an escrow. I didn't even know what an escrow was. You know, when you come to this country, you can't bring a credit rating with you. So here I am at 53 years of age, having lived a reasonably comfortable life and building some things around me. I go and apply for a credit card, I can't get one because they treat me like I'm 17. You try and get a car loan or a house loan, and you just can't get one. And there's nothing you can do apart from building it on the ground. I had to give them $10,000 to a bank and let them give me a credit card to use my own money and watch how I spent it. The idea being that if I spent too much of it, it looked like I couldn't live without it, so I had to get it and then not spend it, or just spend it a little bit. I was getting all this advice from banks. So then I thought, I have to get my wife and family in a home, because part of coming here was saying we'll get them in a nice home, because Americans know how to do homes, right? The UK, they don't know how to do homes. You know, you pay £1 million in London for a shoebox. I never really liked living in London that much. But America's, you got room and space, and it was good. And I said, yeah, let's get an American home and a dog. So we moved into an apartment we had to live somewhere. And then we thought, well, we'll build a house. So we started building a house, and you can put a little bit of money down without having a loan. So I thought, well, I'll get a loan for the house. And people were saying, banks were going, oh, we can certainly do that. You need to have 6 months to build a credit rating. And so after 8 months, when we went to actually need to get the loan, the banks just said, sorry, there's no credit rating, so we can't help you. So all of a sudden, my wife, who had been hanging on thinking she doesn't have a social security number, which means she can't have a phone in her name. She didn't know anyone in the country. My children had gone to a brand new school. Do you know what 1/16 of an inch is? What kind of a measurement is that? You're the only people in the world who say, like, you measure yourself in pounds. I have no idea what a pound is. You drive in miles per hour. In the UK, they did that. I had to learn that when I came from Australia, because it's all kilometres. But my children would come, and you spell things wrongly. Yeah? And so my children were being marked down on spelling tests, not understanding maths, as we call it, right? They have started saying math. Children are better with change, don't you think? Children assimilate better with change. But they were still struggling. My little boy played rugby, because I'm from New Zealand and rugby's full of New Zealand. I used to coach rugby in the UK for my little boy. He comes here to a school, and he also played football, soccer, to find that they don't play football or soccer and they don't play rugby in the school. My little girl does dancing and singing, and what her friends were playing was ice hockey. And the whole thing was really crazy for them as well, to try and fit in. But they did better than my wife, who had no friends, no job, and nothing to call her own. It was really, really hard. And then when the word finally came through to say you can't even get a loan, she was going to take the kids back, and that would have been it for me. Now, while this is going on, I'm just assimilating into an organisation as the head of a division of which I know nothing about. But at least I'm locked in with a big piece of work, so I'm busy, right? But you kind of get an idea of what it's like to assimilate into an organisation and into a country. And by the way, as I mentioned before, I'm probably one of the easiest people, and we're probably one of the easiest families for this to happen to. And it nearly didn't happen, because my wife very truthfully had told me on a number of occasions she's taken the kids back. And that would have been the end of my role at Biotechny. So if we hadn't sorted that bit, I wouldn't be here. I honestly wouldn't be here. And so we've got to consider both sides of this. Now, the way that happened, we recruited a relocation expert who were rubbish. I'm not going to tell you who they were, but they were just rubbish. It was very tactical and not one level of understanding or emotion, not one single bit of it. We had a number of people in the organisation who said to me things like, hey, if I can help, you should just give me a call. Or get your wife to give me a call. We might be able to go out sometime. Of course, no one's going to call. They're not going to call you like Charity going, hi, I'm lonely, do you think I can hang out with you? They don't do that. I mean, the truth is 9-year-olds do. You know, when you've got a 9-year-old and you go to someone else's house and you say to them, there's some other 9-year-olds, go and play, and they go, all right. You can't say to your wife, who's in her mid-40s, I think you should probably just go and play with someone else who's in your mid-40s. It doesn't work like that way. They don't assimilate as well. And what we had to do was try and find a way for my wife to get connected. Now, luckily for us, the CFO got really connected with me at Biotechny, which is lucky for me because I'm on the executive, so I had someone who could do that. And what this person did was his wife jumped in, grabbed Katie, and rather than saying, why don't you call me if you need it, she called Katie and said, meet me here at 11 o'clock. I've got some things I want to show you. When it came to Thanksgiving, and I didn't even know what Thanksgiving was, they said, we've got no family here in the Twin Cities. Why don't you come with us? We're going to Chicago. So we went on a road trip to Chicago for Thanksgiving. And then we met up with them at Christmas. And we just, all of a sudden, they connected our families together emotionally, gave us a set of friends. We're going to introduce other people. And before I knew it, oh, by the way, with the house, I couldn't get a loan. I was just with him one day and I said, I don't even know what to do. This crazy country, I can't even get the house. I think I'm probably going to lose my wife. I wasn't digging for anything. And he said, wow, I feel responsible for that. I said, how are you responsible? He said, well, we brought you here. And if you can't stay here, then I feel responsible. And he said, we spend a lot of money with our bank. Surely we can help you get a loan, right? Your job's secure. So he put in a couple of calls. All of a sudden, we found a bank was willing to help me because someone was willing to put in a help me. In the end, we got a loan, not through that bank, but I was beginning to think, wow, that's the only solution. It meant my wife could get a house and we could be here. Now, a year on, we're here, right? We have a house, we're in, my kids are in school, my daughter speaks with an American accent, my little boy, I'm coaching American football, he plays baseball, my little girl's at the children's theatre. It's worked, I'm in. However, what we haven't solved, I mean, I love the Twin Cities, my family does, we're kind of assimilating now. I'm beginning to get a Minnesotan accent, which I'm proud of. But essentially, what that hasn't dealt with is my role now, and what do I do to make sure that as we continue to diversify in our business and grow our business, my role now is to make sure that people experience what I did, don't experience that, and actually have a better role, a better time at doing it. For people who sometimes it's harder to create inclusion than it might have been for me. And so I think this is what I'm trying to do here is we're trying to change behavior. We're trying to get people to act in a particular way in order to get a result. That's what we're trying to do. And the result that we're trying to get is we're trying to get diversity in our organization. Now, Biotechny, the company I work for, has grown exponentially. In the last 3 years, it's gone from 6 sites to 23 or 24 sites across the globe. And incredibly diverse and continuing to diversify, and it's going to continue to grow. So it's an ever-expanding thing, which we can't quite get a handle on. You can't wait and say, I'll just fix this bit, because there's another bit that we throw on a continual basis. I don't know anything about HR, and I don't want to offend anyone about HR, but what I entered into HR when I joined a human resources department is there seems to be a lot of policy, a lot of guidelines and rules around how people need to act. So when I came to this country, for instance, I said, Merry Christmas to someone. And this lady said, I don't support Christmas. I said, oh, don't you? She said, no, and we don't say that here. I said, you don't say what? She said, we don't say Merry Christmas. I said, why not? She said, well, I don't need your religion pushed onto me. I said, I didn't know that I had a religion, and I'm definitely not pushing anything onto you. I was just wishing you Merry Christmas. And she said, well, I don't support Christmas, so it's best to say Happy Holiday. So anyway, I took that, stunned. I went to see the chief exec. I said, Chuck, what the heck is this, mate? I'm not allowed to say Merry Christmas. He said, no, welcome to North America. So then he said, it's just better, you're better off not saying it, particularly in your role as head of HR. So I went to see our head of legal. I said, tell me where I am on the legalities of this. She said, you're just better off not saying it. So this really frustrated me. It frustrated me because I was born in New Zealand where we said it. I went to Australia where we said it. I went to England where we said it. I came here where Christmas was designed. I mean, the whole idea of a big guy in a red suit holding a Coke is American, isn't it? Norman Rockwell. I mean, this is the place. And I just couldn't believe this culture which has been too afraid to do anything. And so it's come down to rules, going, no, you actually have to just say this, because that's going to make people feel more included. Anyway, I'm happy to say, and I'm very proud to say, Biotechny is moving away from that. So I stood up and I said at the holiday party, because they still call it that. We have a holiday tree, by the way, downstairs. It's changing. I said, Merry Christmas to all of you, and let me explain why I'm saying it. Merry Christmas to all of you, because I've always said that my whole life. And what it means to me is I wish you all the very best at this time of year. I wish you peace. I wish you joy. I wish you connection with friends and families. I wish you that you drop anything difficult that's between you and other people so that you can rebuild a relationship. I wish you gifts from other people and the spirit of giving to someone else. I just wish you all of that as families come together and celebrate love and being together. I wish you that is what I wish you. And by the way, if I say Merry Christmas, that's what I mean. So please don't say to me you don't support it or don't shove anything down your throat. And if someone comes to me and says Happy Hanukkah, I'm not going to go, I don't support Hanukkah. I'm going to say, Thank you. What the hell does that mean? And I'm going to ask you to tell me what it means. Or Happy Kwanzaa, I'm going to go, let's hear what that means so I can celebrate that too. And if someone's going, celebrating Ramadan, they're not eating, well, let's respect that as well. And let's have an organization that accommodates everybody and everybody's inclusive and we're allowed to celebrate what we want. And that's okay, as long as we're not harming someone else. And so much of that, I think, comes back to the intention behind what you're doing. But it's twofold, right? You can include people, but they've also got to work to be included. Does that make sense? Diversity is easy. You can put plants in a garden, right? You can put diverse plants in a garden. That's not a hard thing. You can put a metric on. We should have someone who wears a turban on the board. That's actually not a difficult thing to do at all. Inclusion is really, really hard. Does the plant grow in the garden is really what the issue is. And we're trying to create an environment where whatever you put in the garden, it will grow. And for me, that's got nothing to do with policy. It's got nothing to do with any part of the law or rules. It's to do with whether other people are nurturing that plant and giving it time to take seed and respecting what it is and feeling the joy of having it there and understanding the real reason why it's there. So what are we trying to get when we say diversity? What's the outcome we're trying to get? Why would we bother? Just one at a time, if that's okay.
We want to get better ideas.
We want to get better ideas. Sure. I can't tell you how many middle-class white male boards I've talked to who are saying we need to bring more innovation into our thinking. And you could say you could have started with recruitment, you know. So I get it. You get different ideas from different frames of reference and different scope. Why else? You want diversity to have inclusion, absolutely. Yes? It's very hard to create inclusion when you have nothing to include. There was a point here?
I would say it's kind of multiplying opportunities and line of communication, and it's also practicing trust. It has to do with trust, I would say.
Sure. And trust...
And opening up versus narrowing down. So if the organization is too narrow, it needs to branch out.
Sure. And we want to compete on a global stage, and it's very hard to do it without embracing a global world. It's very hard to do that, which is an interesting look at where politics are going right at the moment. There was a lady in the front.
We want everybody to have a place where they can be the best that they can be.
Yeah, we do. And we're just opening up this conversation at the moment at Biotechny on whether we should be talking about women. Now, when I went to some of the most senior women in the organization, they said the fact that you're even raising it is showing a sign of weakness for women, and we shouldn't even be having the debate. Now, for me, I found that difficult because I was saying, well, if I look at the organization and say we've got one female on the board, we've got one female Section 16 officer, and we've got 68% men in management positions, but we've got more women than men in the organization, I think it's time for us to say we should at least talk about it. Not because I think it should be somehow balanced or we should have quotas or it should be 50-50. For me, it's this. To me, it's a bit more logical. Why would you leave resources sitting on a shelf and not using them? In other words, why would you not have diversity when it's resources you can use? Like, let's use all of the resources the organization has. For that alone. I don't know what the numbers should be, but let's make sure that everybody's in a position to give everything that they have. And it doesn't feel like they are. There was a comment back here.
Yeah, if you take diversity plus trust, you really get energy. And once you get energy, then you get creativity. Then you get a culture and a buy-in and all these things that I think any successful organization really aspires to. But you need to have it combined with trust.
Now, and I agree. And trust is interesting because a lot of people say, well, I'll trust you the moment you prove to me that you're trustworthy. But if I ask you to walk along a bridge and I say, you've got to walk on this bridge, you go, will it hold my weight? I say, I don't know, you're going to have to trust it. Trust is scary. You don't know whether it's going to hold your weight. If you knew it was going to hold your weight, like the floor that you're currently sitting on, which is, to remind you, 40 floors above the ground, this floor, not one of you are sitting here thinking, gee, I hope this holds my weight. It's no longer inside your head. Trust is not required to sit in this room. I mean, it is. You're trusting the floor, but you're not experiencing any level of trust. Well, you weren't. You might be now. But trust didn't come into it. Now, I think trust is proactive. I think you have to, trust is scary. You've got to teach an organization that they have to trust leadership, that they have to trust strategy, they have to trust where it's going and what you're asking them to do, even if they've got a history of saying, well, it hasn't proved to be trustworthy. I got people who don't trust me because of what they think about HR. And it's got nothing to do with me. I wasn't even part of HR. But it takes a long time to bring them around to say, I just need you to step out and trust, regardless of what the history is. But I agree, trust is a huge part of it. I think this, though, is more important, right? Rather than having people comply with this approach we're trying to do, what we're trying to do is get them to commit to an organization which is just diverse because it should be and because they want it to be and they benefit from it. But actually what we need is the inclusion is the outcome we really want. We want an inclusive environment. So it doesn't matter who you put in it, or how they come in, or when they come in, or where they come in. They're just included. And we understand the value of that. But we've got to get people to do that. How hard is it to get people to do stuff they don't want to do? It's really hard. Have you ever tried to stop eating cake if you want to eat cake? Have you ever tried to stop smoking when you feel like smoking? It's really, really hard, right? So to get people to do something, that's why we need compliance and rules and people watching, clear expectations, scrutiny, consequences. We need those things to tighten it up, unless we can address it from a different point. If you get someone who's, I don't know, they smoke, right? And they've been smoking for a long time, and then all of a sudden, I don't want to make anyone go too deep, but imagine someone you really love dies from some lung cancer or something happens, and then all of a sudden you don't feel like a cigarette anymore. Like it used to be important, and now it's not important anymore. So all of a sudden, it's now easy not to smoke. Someone says, do you want to smoke? You go, no. It's like when you go, remember when you go to a party when you're at university or young, and you're kind of known as the Sambuca king or queen, right? You know what Sambuca is? Okay. Tequila? Tequila's got it? Tequila. You're a tequila king or queen, and you just love tequila. They know that the tequila shots come out when you're around, right? And you arrive at the party a bit late, and they go, man, we're already 5 shots in. You go, woohoo! So you knock 5 shots back, and then the party kicks on, and after 20 shots of tequila, you head home, and you have a big tequila vom. You know what I'm talking about? And the next day you turn up at another party, and someone says, hey, tequila boy! And you say, I'm not doing tequila, right? How hard is it for me to not have tequila? It's effortless not to have tequila. Yesterday, I would have knocked you over to get a tequila. Today, I'm not having a tequila. So my behavior changed, which is changing my outcome, but there's a significant thing that happened here. How I felt changed. That's why it changed. When your feelings are in line with the behavior you want, behavior is effortless. If you don't feel like smoking, not smoking is easy. If you feel like being inclusive is effortless. If you don't feel like being inclusive, then being inclusive is very, very hard. I think we've got to stop having rules around behavior, and we've got to start actually locking into how people feel and why they feel the way they do. Which I guess is leading me to why I'm in the organization. I'm less about the rules in the organization and more about the feel of the organization, more about what people think and where they're coming from and trying to influence that. I wrote a little book called Be a Tenant Change, and I think there may be a copy for you. There may be a copy if you're well behaved. This is the little book. It's called Be a Tenant Change. If 10 is the best, 10 out of 10 is the best score you can get, then being a 10 is the best, right? And I'm just saying, why not be a 10 at change? Why not be a 10 at inclusion? Why not be a 10 at whatever you can be, as opposed to a 1? And if you look at this as a feeling scale, you know, if you think about inclusion, how do I feel? 10. I'm there. I'm in already. That's the best you can be. It drives the best behavior and drives the best outcome. If you're a 1, then you're the opposite of 10. And the smart ones amongst you realize that if you write the words be a 10, it spells beaten. And being beaten by inclusion is where a lot of people are. They're being beaten by the rules of the organization, the policy. They just can't get them. In other words, it's like they're oppressed by them. And there are a lot of people, I believe, that will come into organization, helped by Frederickson to get there, and they will leave beaten because they never got it to work. And the organization loses as well. So I guess my philosophy is on how do we get the organization and the people to just be 10, feel 10, in this case about inclusion, but it could be about anything. And here's, I guess I wanted to talk about how do you do that. It's pretty simple. It comes down to that. It comes down to the way you see the world or the way you experience the world. If you see a cigarette as a really valuable thing, you feel like having one, you see it as a good thing, you enjoy it, you're going to have one. If you see that it isn't, it's just a thing that's going to kill you, you're not going to have one because you don't feel like it. If you see standing up in front of a room like this as being an easy thing and a valuable thing, you go straight to a 10 and it will drive your behavior. If you see this as an incredibly scary thing where you could be unpicked and look silly and or whatever where it is, and some people are afraid of standing up in front of others, then you go to a 1 and it's very hard to access this. Does that make sense? We've got to capture the way people feel. It's emotional. And that comes from their identity, the way in which they see the world, the filter from which they filter everything. And if you think about people that we refer to as bigots or racists or any of those other words we might use, what we're really saying is that they think differently. They believe different things. They see the world differently. And that thinking that they have and the way in which they see the world and the stuff that they believe impacts the way that they feel, which impacts their behavior, which impacts the results that they get. Now, we can bring police in and say, you cannot do that anymore, but it's just always hard. If we can educate people differently, if we can get them to change their filter, if we can get them to see the benefits of what diversity does and the benefits of inclusion and being an inclusive person, we don't even need to work. So for me at Biotechny, what we're trying to do is create a culture that changes the way the entire employee base see diversity, see inclusion, think about that, and feel about that. By getting everyone to feel completely included and to think about inclusion and to see the value of inclusion. By the way, how hard is it to change a belief? Is it hard? I mean, if you say, I believe this element is not on, I say, no, it's on. You go, no, I believe it isn't. And then you touch it and find it is. How hard is it to change that belief? That one's pretty simple, right? But there are some that are hard. How many beliefs are you born with? You're not born with any. So anything you believe today you didn't arrive with. I mean, you don't pick up a newborn baby and say, what do you believe? It's nothing, right? They don't believe anything. So every belief you have today you picked up since you were born. Can you change a belief, though? You can? Have you ever, looked at a photograph of yourself from a few years ago and you're wearing something? You look at it going, what the hell was I thinking? And no, what's that? and you won't do it. Or, you kind of might have all of your... I'm trying to think of artists you would know. The Bee Gee albums, I don't know. The albums that you've got, you just decide to put them away because Justin Timberlake is the new... Are you worried that Zayn left One Direction? Is that like...
He's on his own now.
He's on his own, yeah. But he sings songs that are too rude for my daughter to listen to. So she's allowed to listen to One Direction, but not Zayn on his own, apparently. If your little girl of 11 is listening to Pillow Talk, you need to stop it. I'm just saying, right? But my little boy, who's 9, did teach me to twerk the other day. So I was, at least I am, he's getting information from somewhere. But in terms of belief, we're not born with any beliefs. And yet our beliefs change from time to time, as you know they do. In other words, we think this is who I am. It's not who you are, it's who you've become. You became this. You're not born bigot, you're not born narrow, you're not born racist, you're not born exclusive. You become that through environment. And sadly, a lot of it is done at a subconscious level, so we don't even understand it. Then we come up with terms like unconscious bias. So you find that I'm now biased, and I didn't even know I was. My intention is not to be biased, I'm just biased because I don't even know how not to be. And this is a very difficult world in which we live. I'm a bloke, in case you haven't worked it out. I don't know how to treat women. I've told you before, I've got a high sense of sensory acuity, but I don't know, when I work through the door with Kristen, from a child, whether I should hold the door for her or not. Because I've had experiences where people say, thank you, and others where they say, I'm as capable of holding a door as you. So I don't know what the rules are of the game I'm playing. Does that make sense? It's a very scary world just in that environment. When I start bringing in other cultures and other races, and I saw a great video the other day saying there is only one race, it's the human race, we don't have all these races, which I really love that concept. If we could get an organization to believe that, we have one race, that's it. But once you bring in different religions and things, I don't even know where to go with this. And I'll say it again, I think I'm one of the ones who will pick it up more easily than some others. I mean, we've got groups of scientists in the organization who, when it comes to the finer aspects of human interaction, the gland is missing, you know, that thing, and we're working with them to help them. These people, some of them will not find it easy to include themselves in an organization. It's actually really hard work. You know, they want to hang out with people who are like them, and why wouldn't they? I mean, why wouldn't they? If you went to Japan and you were struggling on trying to read street signs and menus your entire life, and then you found two Americans, you just want to go, oh, great, I just want to sit down and speak with an American accent in English with someone. And yet you've got other people going, can you believe what they're doing, right? They are speaking their own language. They're probably talking about us right now, right? And somehow this is bad. We want them to only speak our language because they're here. But that's not inclusive. We've got to accommodate both sides of that. But we weren't born with what we believe. Our belief can change, and we say that's what our identity is. It's not, it's who we became. And if we don't like who we are or we're not happy with that, we can change it. So my belief is we need to change it from an organizational perspective. This water is in a glass, right? So this glass is the context, and the glass is the water is the content. The water is shaped by the context. The water is shaped by the glass. If I tip the water out, I won't, but if I did, it behaves very differently. Context is shaped by content. Context is shaped by content. Sorry. Content is shaped by context. That's what I'm trying to say. I was just saying if you're awake. Content is shaped by context. Have you ever had your words taken out of context? What happens? People get bent out of shape. They go, I didn't like the tone of your text. You go, it doesn't have a tone, it's a text. You used capitals or whatever you did, right? You bolded that or put italics. Is divorce wrong? You should see your faces. Yeah, you could say, give me a context. Is it wrong to kill someone? Ooh. Some of you are going, yes. Some are going, you can think of the people right now where if the context was right. See, you have to say, give me a context. It's very hard to discuss any content unless there's a context. And we're talking about the content of an organization, people from different places, the value that they add, the education that they've got, the way in which they got to be here. And that's all content. We can put a context on it and we can move the way people think. And I think that context change is the very heart of what our Human Resources Department is doing. So on that basis, when we can begin to allow people to see a different context for diversity, on why we have people in the organization, when we can give them some guidelines on how to make people feel more included, and we need to do that, because if honestly walking around saying Merry Christmas is going to offend a whole lot of people, then we just shouldn't be saying it. But before I stop saying it, I want to just make sure that we can't just include everyone. You know, should we have prayer rooms for people to pray? Should we do that? Or should we create an environment where anyone can pray whenever they want because it's just acceptable? It's completely acceptable for you to do that. If someone needs to wash their feet before they pray, we probably need bowls in the bathroom so they can do that. There are some things we have to do practically, but imagine a world where it just didn't matter. I get a guy in the UK who started a recruitment company because his son is on the spectrum with Asperger's, and he found it very hard to get a job. So what he found was his son can do testing. He loves things, anything in a sequence. Will sit there for hours going, loves it. Everyone else goes kind of brain dead with it, and his son just loves it and is so good at it. Got him involved in computer testing, found that he was 6 times faster. He could do the work of 6 people in a day in testing. The only issue was, when he gets scared, he hides under his desk, and when he gets hot, he takes his clothes off. So now the organization has an issue. How do I accommodate this person in my business? So what do? Do we not have them because you can't say to people you're allowed to just strip down to your boxes if it's hot? Or do you say, no, you have to sit on a seat, you're not allowed to kneel under your desk on a laptop? You can have policies for that. What they decided to do was just work to create inclusive environments to educate everybody so that they saw this as being an okay thing to do and included this person into the office. Working on the air conditioner, he doesn't need to get undressed as much. And the moment he became more inclusive, he wasn't as scared as much. And so the behavior changed because of the inclusive environment. But I think the story for me is beautiful. What we did was, rather than try and lock it down, we changed the whole environment. And environment changes everything. You know, you walk into a church, you change the way you speak. Whether you're a Christian or spiritual or not, you walk into a mosque, you will be cautious about the way in which you act because environment changes everything. And for me, it's about creating an environment where we can have inclusion and diversity. And that's all I had to say for you today. So I thank you very much for listening.
I thought you were going to talk about ethics. So in your bio, I love this. I met with Drew before the presentation, and in the bio, I talk about him being epic because he is a person of extraordinary ability. And I learned that I was teaching a class to talk about the presentation, and I love that concept. So are you going to share with us a little bit about what epic is?
Yeah, and actually the truth is, I got so carried away on that I completely forgot, but that's the story of my life. My wife has to remind me that her birthday is on the same day every year, which I didn't know. Because, speak of the devil, check that out. Okay, this will be really, really quick. Part of, and I completely forgot about this. I'm so friendly with you, I thought you already knew this. We had a kind of a vision in the organization or a series of values which to me didn't make sense. They were on the wall, right? Like a lot of companies have them, but no one knew them. And they were really vanilla and boring and they didn't do anything. It's like, you know, part of it was to be the partner of choice in protein science. To be the partner of choice. I don't even know what that means. But it didn't excite me at all. And protein science was only a little bit of what we did, so it didn't even include everyone. It was just wrong. So with one of the people in HR, one of the more senior people in HR, by the way, I use senior meaning position, not old. Does that make sense? I keep getting into trouble with that. When the senior ones come, I'm expecting people to go, that's me, and it's not. I mean, anyway, it doesn't matter. So I was asking this lady, this woman, about the values. She didn't know them. I said, they're on the wall behind you. She went to turn. I said, what are they? Do you have any idea what they are? And then I read them. I said, are they familiar? She said, no. I said, right, they come down. They just come down. What's the point of having them? So I came across a little picture on the internet, and we had a strategy planning meeting for the executive. And on the internet, I came across this little boy. If you put the word epic in Google, look for Prince, you'll find it. It's a little boy standing on top of a garage with a red tea towel on his back. And it just says, well, you'll read it, so I'm going to tell you. It says, do epic shit, this thing. So what I did was, in front of the executives, as the head of HR, I said, I think we should change what we do to Biotechny, we do epic shit. And there was a pause. And the CFO said, I love it, right? And everyone else said, no, we can't. And my view was, with the millennials, which were trying to grab and change the world, if they had a T-shirt that said Biotechny, we do epic shit, and they went to a trade show, everyone would want to join our business. That's my view. But everyone else was going, no, science is too serious and you just can't do it. So anyway, the people were saying, can we do epic stuff? Will that work? I was saying, you've missed the point. But what it did is, when I first came over and did some consulting, I came across 4 things which Biotechny didn't do, right? The first thing was, we just did not release the potential of anyone. We just didn't empower people. It was command and control. Even though we're 21% Asian, Chinese Asian or Southeast Asia Asian, which culturally, these people from that region, if you've ever worked in that region, will follow direction quite well and very rarely challenge up, is kind of a part of the culture, 5,000 years of history. When they work in an organization in this country, where they have a hierarchical command and control approach, they are completely included. They love it. So part of what I'm trying to do is change the hierarchical approach to the organization, which is making a whole lot of people feel uncomfortable because they preferred that way. right? Even though they might have lived here for many, many years. But empowerment, we're bringing in passion. There was just no one seemed to be excited in the organization. No one was kind of going, ooh, I love it. People just tell me that they've had low morale for 17 years and they're still here. I could never got it. And innovation, we are just not releasing the thinking of the organization to drive it forward. And collaboration, and by collaboration is just, as I told you, we're growing exponentially. Are these people really working together? And collaboration is with anyone, reaching across boundaries, whether they be gender boundaries or across the hallway or different countries or just different work groups, different divisions, different skill sets, different educational levels. I don't really care what it is, but just reach across boundaries and find the value in sharing with someone else, releasing that. And so we released these EPIC values. We got an EPIC team. We got a head of EPIC called the top banana. So we have a top banana in every site, which is a person from the organization, not in a leadership position. We have leaders from each of these EPIC values, so a head of collaboration, a head of empowerment, a head of passion in every location. This is like for the people, of the people, by the people. And when we want to do something, we just reach out to this team. This team mobilize the people in the organization in order to drive EPIC behavior through the organization. We put a training squad together across the organization now. We're just about to roll out the first ever leadership development training across the organization. It's never had it in 40 years. To try and bring in leadership who will accommodate these behaviors and be more inclusive. So EPIC is sorry for missing it, Lone, but EPIC is the center of the culture which we're trying to create. And it works really well with those, but also just works with EPIC. So when someone says we're building an intranet site, I can say, is it EPIC? I go, it's not that epic. I say, well, then go and make it epic. If you're going to have an orientation, Ali looks after orientation. I'm saying to her, I don't care what it is. Don't have to ask me. Just if you think it's epic, it's going to be perfect. That's all I need you to do is just go and make an orientation program epic. And for me, that's really working in the organization. And I do think, I'm now doubting myself. Yep, good, thank you.